Merci, bonjour à tous. Je vais parler en anglais, ça va? All right, so who wants to learn, put your hands up if you want to learn more about why cybersecurity, modern cybersecurity is essential in the modern age. Lève les mains. Good. I'm doing this because I know this is the graveyard slot and you're all looking forward to going home, but thank you for staying for this one. So who also wants to use this information to make your companies or yourselves more successful? Put your hands up and say yes. Or oui. Dis oui. Disez oui, s'il vous plaît. Thank you. But where are you now? Well, maybe your companies are putting pressure on people like you to deliver AI projects more quickly. And maybe you're thinking, but I don't have the resources to do that. Possibly you're worried. You've heard about some of the data leaks that AI is causing, and very critical information in your companies is being put at risk. Maybe you're concerned about creating what's effectively a super user, a global admin, who has access to all your data. That's essentially what an AI bot is when you put it on your corporate network. And you're worried about the risks that that might be causing. And also you're thinking, I've been going on about my company for years to say, let's value the data that we have. And they've not done it because they treat IT as a technical issue. And this is becoming even more problematic as legacy technical debt accumulates. So where would you like to be? Well, imagine being able to implement AI projects really quickly because you know where your data is at. Imagine being comfortable about the risks of cybersecurity from AI projects. And envisage if something does go wrong, like a new zero-day bug is discovered deep inside some piece of technology that nobody could have realistically anticipated, you can discuss this with your clients, your customers, in a non-blame scenario. And imagine being able to contribute through cybersecurity directly to the profitability and success of your company. So how do you get from where you are now to where you want to be? If I find my control. So I believe the solution is modern risk-based cybersecurity. So what do I mean by that? Well, first of all, risk-based simply means focusing on what's important. Not treating technology as a thing in itself, but linking it to the value to your business and the probability of that value being lost. So that's what risk-based means. It doesn't mean, as you've seen in multiple of their stands here actually, people talking about managing your risks, and they really mean managing your vulnerabilities, which is something different. And modern means linking it to the modern needs of your company. So if your company needs to start using AI, then modern cybersecurity needs to match that. And it needs to stop talking about technology and start talking about business outcomes. So that's what I mean by modern risk-based cybersecurity. So, okay, my clicker's not working now. Oh, there it is, just a delay. Right. So what advantages does that give you? First of all, it gives you agility. A year ago, almost, hardly anybody had heard of ChatGPT and all things like that. And now it's everywhere. Everybody's talking about it all the time. I haven't come across one company that isn't thinking in some way of deploying AI on its internal or external infrastructure. But at the same time, we're seeing much greater attacks on our companies, but also we're under pressure to save money. So we need to show that we can use AI without going over budget and getting on top of things. And another thing about AI and cybersecurity is that we need to give our users great experiences. We can't just go putting cybersecurity controls on that make things more and more difficult. Did anybody hear about the German generals that were listened into by the Russians a couple of weeks ago? Or if you didn't know the story, maybe it was just news in the UK, but some German generals are discussing the war in Ukraine, and the transcript of their conversation ended up all over the internet. Why did it end up on the internet? Because they were using WebEx, an open platform. They weren't using German military equipment to discuss secrets. They were just using something that was publicly available. Yeah, it's multiple layered incompetence, and I won't go into the full detailed story, but why were they doing that? They were doing it because the IT that they had was so clunky and difficult to use that it was easy just to talk on their own laptops. And so that's why it's not just great for your customers and great for your employees to have great user interfaces, it's important for your business success. And talking about that business success, now, who here works in IT or technology or cyber? Hands up, just one person. Two, okay, a couple of you may have missed it. Yeah. Anybody here work in sales? No. They're the enemy sometimes. But we may not contribute directly to sales, but we are important to it. And what our business needs to do is to actually help our companies have greater margin, which means not being an overhead and contributing directly to product outputs. And why is this important now? So it's not only is AI come from nowhere to be everywhere in just a short year, but also it's not just useful to us, it's useful to our adversaries. So we are expecting a wave of attacks. So you've all heard about phishing. Who here has a campaign in their company to educate their staff on not clicking on phishing links? Give me a nod if that happens in your company. Yeah, good practice. Who here has received a personalized phishing link, specially designed for them? One or two of you. If I reckon I come back here next year, that will be a greater number. Because at the moment, to make a spear phishing attack, which is an attack specially designed for you personally, it's hard work. I need to look up your Facebook. I need to look at your LinkedIn. I need to understand your family and everything about you, what your passions are. That's really hard work. AI is going to make that easy to automate. So we will all receive spear phishing emails specially designed against us personally in the future. And that's just one type of attack. AI is also great at writing code. So you can set it, hack this company, and it will go off and do that, despite the controls that are being put in. So the UK and American governments just earlier this week called out China for hacking our electoral commission in the UK. They hacked our parliamentarians. They hacked, in America, multiple Congress people who were critical of China. And the French government as well has called out attacks on infrastructure. Now this is a topical picture. This was not a cyber attack, but this gives you an idea of the power of something going wrong and how it can cause literally billions of pounds worth of damage. And this is coming near us, and the French government has warned Chinese adversaries are particularly targeting infrastructure. Any of you work in infrastructure companies? Or maybe you work in a company that has intellectual property. Any of you work companies that have intellectual property? Checking you're alive still. Yes, okay. So you all have intellectual property to protect. It's what makes our salaries payable, because we have something valuable to give to our customer. And again, the French government's warning that that's what they're stealing, an increasing quantity and aggression. And at the same time, in the context of all those attacks, we're all migrating to the cloud. So Thales estimates that 60% of all our data is already in the cloud. And Gartner estimate that by next year, as soon as that, 95% of all new deliveries will be in the cloud. 95%, almost everything, including many defense and other very sensitive applications, will all be in the cloud. So we really need to get ahead of this, because otherwise we're going to be in a lot of trouble. Now, we have a solution actually called the Cyber Design Accelerator, which actually helps you accelerate your cyber security. But first, if we have a little bit of time, I'll just tell you a little story about a client I worked with earlier this year. Now, this is a picture from Heathrow. Actually, it shows the ground equipment in a hangar in Heathrow Airport. And if you take your minds back to August last year, it's a hot summer's day. You can smell all the aircraft fuel because you're so close to the runways where these hangars are. And this is all the non-glamorous stuff, but it's very well maintained. It smells of machine oil. And Hans Johan is the technical director for this company. And he's very proud of keeping everything working. You can tell just by looking at him that he's a really conscientious worker. And he also looks very pale normally because he spends a lot of time indoors. But today he's looking red because he's frustrated because he can't get the additional budget he needs to do all the AI projects the finance director wants of him. And the finance director is sitting opposite him saying, Johan, you can't have any more money. The board's already agreed budgets for this year. We need to do these additional AI projects, and you just need to do the best you can with the money you've got. But his name's Richard Smythe. And he says, but Richard, I can't do that. You're taking huge risks if you ask me to do these additional projects. I've got a huge backlog of cybersecurity activities that I need to do this year. Which ones do you want to do? Make your own mind up. We trust you. The board has full confidence in you. But Richard, you're taking a huge risk. Risk is part of business. And with that, he walks off to the golf club. He's doing sales, of course, you see, out in the sunshine. And he's even wearing his golf shoes already. So Johan goes back to doing the best he can with the limited resources he's got. He's really busy. They don't just work at Heathrow, supplying to multiple airlines there. They supply to airfields all around the world. And now it's December, just before Christmas, the week before Christmas, and he's coming out the airport there. And he's got the usual smell of aircraft fuel as you get around airplanes. But here is now, it's midsummer in South Africa, just before Christmas. And he can smell the tar melting on the runway as well. And he bumps into me and he says, George, what are you doing here? It's almost Christmas. And I say, well, I'm here because 16 hours ago, I was in the local supermarket loading up with alcohol for Christmas. I could hear the satisfying clink of bottles going together. And I was getting ready for I needed this much alcohol because my in-laws were coming over to stay for Christmas. And I get a call saying, George, can you go to South Africa right now? Because a big company is being ransomwared. And I explained to Johan, the worst thing about this ransomware attack is they have thousands of servers. Not all of them are being attacked, but they don't know what's on those servers. They haven't done the basic work to understand the value of their data, not just merely that they have data. And if they'd done that, we'd be one step ahead already. So my first task, helping to remediate this attack, is to understand what's been lost, what might have been lost, and what value it is, because that will then dictate our next actions. But it'd been so much easier if the company had done that already, because we could then be switching to a recovery mode already. And I really recommend that all companies work out the value of their data. And Johan says, oh, I'm having a similar problem. And I say, yes, and if you did this, you'd be able to communicate better with your directors and your chief financial officers to explain why you need to do these particular projects, so you wouldn't get arbitrary budget limits. And Johan says, well, after Christmas, can you help me with doing that? So we work together to actually start to value the data in this company here. Now, valuing the data is harder than it sounds, because a lot of people have no idea where to start. This is why they don't do it. It requires the technology people to go outside their comfort zone and talk to finance and salespeople and understand that. And actually, they're not used to talking to you either. So they say to Johan, what are you doing? You're the department of no. I wanted to have Twitter on my work phone the other day, and you said, get lost, and you slowed me down, and I couldn't communicate with our customers. I wanted a new laptop. I wanted to have my iPad, and you made me use something different. So it took a bit of a while for non-technical staff to get used to a different way of engaging from IT. But when they did it, they started to realize, actually, it is really valuable. And then they had a whole list of potential AI projects, and they were able to start to distinguish between those AI projects, because they said, actually, this data here is really valuable, and if I apply AI to that, I can actually realize the value of that data and start to sell it. So actually, what started out as a cybersecurity exercise, just to value things for cybersecurity, turned out to have direct value to the company. And then earlier this year, that company then got valued at 10% premium above its existing share price. And that was not entirely due to this work, but a very large proportion of it was due to they were able to credibly say they were actively using AI and starting to see the value of their data, and that directly contributed to the valuation of this company. So how do they go about doing this? And in the last 5 minutes, I'll quickly touch on that. So we take people through what we call a sort of cyber design accelerator. And this has a number of elements. First of this is agility. So not only are customer requirements changing in an accelerating way, as we've just mentioned, the threat is changing in an accelerating way as well. So you need the agility to respond. And we give our clients something called an adaptive security monitor, which has not come through yet, hang on, to help management actually respond to changing requirements more quickly. So this isn't a technical exercise. This is actually enabling management to deal with risks more often. So the big mistake I see here is that management see risks and risk management as something they either do because the cybersecurity person is always going on about it, or because compliance say you all have to do it, and they treat it as a tick box, something you just say, yeah, done, I filled the box in, next. And actually, we teach management how to use risks to actually make management decisions. Now, the next bit is to actually generate those risks in the first place. And I will talk about that a bit in a session. But again, we quite often see the mistake made by cybersecurity professionals is to confuse vulnerabilities with risks. And actually, you end up with a big, long list of problems. You talk to your colleagues in the non-technical department, and you can almost set a timer for their eyes glazing over, saying, I hired you to deal with this. Stop boring me with technical details and get on with it. So we teach cybersecurity people actually how to express risks in business terms and make them actionable and start to make risk management work for the company. And that's the practical preparation process. Because actually we talk about preparation because that sets how risk management works through the whole life of your products that you own. Now, the next element is controls. Now, this is the bit that everybody associates with security. This is the department of no, the bouncer that doesn't let you into a nightclub, the security people up here who insist on seeing your passport, even if it might be a fake one, who really haven't tested it. It's what's called controls that add cost and quite often detract from the user experience. And quite often they're just theatre anyway. They're there just to look good. So we actually use something we call the GEM safeguarding monitor to actually measure the maturity of your security controls. How well are they actually working to deliver what you want to achieve? And do that for management in terms of how the people are behaving, not a technical control. And finally, we talk about engineering, and in particular, secure by design. So you might have heard, who's here about secure by design and various initiatives in the US and otherwise to build things secure by design? Trouble is, they quite often don't say what that means beyond a few generalities and how you get there. And the mistake to be made is they haven't done all the preparatory work to understand how risk management affects the design of your equipment. So what we do is we provide a toolbox to allow non-technical managers to actually design things securely, to ask the right questions, and are they using the right approaches to secure things? Things like deception. Have you designed deception into any network you've built or device? Have you designed least privileging? Have you designed diversity so that if one part is hacked, every bit isn't? And that's the output of really good risk management. It's quite often a cheaper system. And there, one customer we worked with, it was a defense customer, and they saved £100 million by applying secure by design principles because they were able to design something cheaper by focusing on keeping secure what's really important. So how do you actually do this? Well, I haven't got time to talk through everything, but what I will do is just talk into risk management and explain how you can use that to better enable your AI. There's lots of elements there, but I'm going to just talk about anticipating risks. Now, what do I mean by anticipating risks? Well, that can often mean identifying what those risks are. And as I said, the really big mistake here is not understanding what a true risk is in management terms. What do I mean by that? Well, here's an example of a weapon, a torpedo. Now, if you talked to a lot of people making devices like this, they would say the risks are, in the technology, the risks are in people who might give away secrets, or the risks are in storage. All those are vulnerabilities. They're not risks. A risk is something like this. that actually we'll lose the whole damn thing. That it ends up in the hands of an enemy, and all our secrets end up literally in the enemy's hands because it hasn't blown up. And this isn't a theoretical risk. This is a French missile borrowed by the British, called Storm Shadow, we call it. And there it is in a field in Ukraine. And that's a Russian soldier with all our secrets right in front of him. So this is a real risk. That's the sort of risk that loses wars. It's not a technical risk, it's a real risk. So how do you go about identifying real risks rather than technical risks? Well, quite often when I talk to people about risks, and I ask them to tell me what risks they're managing, they talk at this level. Has anybody in your company ever said, or anybody you've heard say, people are my biggest risk? Anybody said that? Well, people are a type of asset. Or my risks is my firewall. Or my risk is my configuration. These are all things down there. Has anybody heard about the MITRE ATT&CK framework? And that really describes how an attacker might move throughout your assets. None of these things are actually risks as defined by ISO 31000 or ISO 27001. An actual risk must include an impact on a business system or an enterprise. And to define that, you cannot stay in the technology zone. You've got to get out into the business. So again, ISO 27000, I use this acronym to remind me, Leo, what are the outcomes you're trying to achieve as a business? Not as a technology, but as a business. What is the effect of something that you've identified, like a vulnerability, going to be potentially on that outcome? And what is its likelihood? Now, if you do that, you end up with a true business risk. And most people don't do it because it's hard, and it requires to talk outside the IT department. But if you do it, you end up with great results. You end up with a business that's more agile. This one got a 10% increase on their valuation. That missile saved 10% of its entire cost, £100 million. And that's how useful you guys can be to your companies. Thank you very much.